Have you ever wondered what happens when the dead are disturbed from their eternal sleep? In the stillness of the night, an unsettling sound echoed through the air, the sound of ancient graves cracking open. A chilling hush fell over the world as the ground trembled and shifted, the final resting places of the long-forgotten, no longer undisturbed. Imagine, if you will, mummies, dormant for centuries, beginning to stir. Slowly, painstakingly, they emerged from their sarcophagi, their brittle bodies resisting the passage of time. Their hollow eyes, void of life yet burning with an eerie intensity, stared into the inky abyss of the night. Their gaze, though sightless, was piercing, as if they could see into the very soul of the world that had forgotten them, a world that had moved on without a second thought for the dead and buried. A sepulchral murmur began to fill the air, a low, rumbling whisper that seemed to come from the very depths of the earth itself. It was as though the ground was speaking, the voice of the ancients resonating through the silence. A chilling reminder of the past that refused to stay buried. This wasn't just an echo of history. No, this was something more. This was the stirring of forgotten souls, roused from their sleep and filled with a yearning for something they'd been denied. Their rest had been disturbed, their peace shattered, and now they sought something in return. Their presence was not just felt, but heard. The quiet, muted footsteps of the mummies echoed through the dark streets, a haunting reminder of their relentless advance. The living, unknowing, and unsuspecting could feel a chill in the air, a cold breath on the back of their necks, an icy whisper of the terror that was yet to come. The forgotten souls had awoken, and they sought vengeance. And as the mummies advanced, the world would soon learn that there was a price to pay for disturbing the sleep of the dead. But what could the dead possibly want from the living, you may ask? Well, let's delve into the darkness together, shall we? In the still of the night, the ancient graves yawned open, and from their depths emerged the mummies, long dormant, now awakened. Their hollow eyes, devoid of life yet filled with an eerie determination, stared into the abyss, as if seeing through the veil of time itself. The streets, once bustling with life, now stood silent, save for the muted echoes of their shuffling steps. The mummies, wrapped in centuries-old linen, moved with a purpose that belied their decayed state. Each step taken was a testament to their age-old restlessness, their pursuit of justice. Their hushed footsteps, though barely audible, reverberated through the quiet streets, sending a chill down the spines of the living. The living, oh, how they felt it! That bone-chilling sensation, like a cold breath whispering against their necks, raising goosebumps on their skin. It was as if the dead had left the confines of their graves to lurk in every shadow, around every corner, behind every door. A sense of foreboding hung heavy in the air, a dread that settled in the hearts of the living, making them aware of the spectral presence that now haunted their town. The mummies, undeterred by time or decay, advanced relentlessly. Their pursuit was not of the living, but of justice. A justice long denied, a justice that they were now determined to claim. Each hollow-eyed figure a silent testament to a past wronged, an existence disturbed. Their quest was not for redemption, but retribution. And so the living could only watch, their hearts pounding in their chests, as the dead walked their streets. The once vibrant town now echoed with the sounds of the past, the silent footsteps of the mummies a chilling reminder of the disturbed rest. The living could feel them, the relentless advance of the dead. What do you think would happen when the forgotten are remembered, not with respect, but with desecration? A question to ponder, isn't it? Now let's venture into the silent night where the ancient ones, long at rest, have been rudely awakened. Imagine the mummies, their hollow eyes ablaze with centuries-old indignation. Their hearts, though physically absent, brim with a spectral resolve that transcends time and space. They were once revered, their tombs sanctuaries of serenity. But their peace has been violated, their sanctity tarnished, and now they rise to seek justice. Their pursuit is relentless, their determination unwavering. They are the embodiment of patience, having waited centuries for the world to forget them, only to be rudely awakened by the careless hands of the present. You can feel their muted footsteps echoing through the silent streets, a chilling testament to their unyielding quest. Each step is a reminder of their past glory, their noble lineage, and the sacrilege that has befallen them. The mummies, they're not just remnants of a bygone era, they're remnants of a time when respect for the dead was paramount. Their pursuit of justice is not a quest for retribution, but a quest for respect. Respect for the sanctity of rest, respect for the silent guardians of history, respect for the balance between the living and the dead. Just think about it. They don't seek to harm, but to remind. They are not villains, but victims. Their haunting is not about fear, but about reverence. Their pursuit is not for revenge, but for justice. And in their relentless pursuit, they teach us a lesson, that even in death, dignity should be preserved, sanctity should be respected, and justice should be served. And so, as the cold breath of the dead sends shivers down the spine of the living, one thing becomes clear. The forgotten, when awakened, will not rest until they have been heard. The mummies, they may be silent, they may be slow, but they are resolute. They will not rest until justice is served. Justice, it seems, is not exclusive to the living. Can you imagine the terror of being haunted by those you've wronged, even if they're long dead? In the stillness of the night, a horror older than time itself stirred. The age-old graves, once sealed, cracked open like ancient doors long forgotten. Mummies who had been in a dormant state for centuries emerged slowly. They were no longer the silent, lifeless relics of the past, but harbingers of a terror that was about to unfold. Their hollow eyes, devoid of life yet full of an eerie glow, stared into the darkness, as if seeing through the veil of time and mortality. A sepulchral murmur, a murmur from the grave itself, hung in the air. It was as if the very wind whispered of the horrors that were about to be unleashed. The forgotten souls, wronged and desecrated, sought vengeance. Their anger was not loud or chaotic, but a cold, silent wrath that was far more terrifying. Their muted footsteps echoed through the dark, deserted streets, a chilling reminder of the past's unquiet slumber. The living, those who had unknowingly disturbed their rest, felt the icy breath of the dead on their necks. A chill ran down their spines, a primal fear that gripped their very souls. The mummies advanced relentlessly, an army of the dead marching towards those who had dared to disturb their eternal sleep. The horror that had been dormant for centuries awakened, shattering the illusion of safety. The living were faced with the enormity of their actions, their sacrilege against the resting places of the dead. The fear was palpable, a tangible dread that hung heavily in the air. Every breath felt heavy, every heartbeat a reminder of the life they might soon lose. The dead, who should have been resting in peace, were now the very embodiment of terror. They sought justice for their desecration, an unquenchable thirst for vengeance that had been awakened from centuries of slumber. An ancestral curse had awakened, permeating the air with terror. Wouldn't you agree that every action has consequences, even if they come from beyond the grave? The night was a canvas of chaos and panic, painted with the terror of the living. The mummies, long forgotten, were awake and seeking vengeance. The dark streets that once echoed with the laughter of life now resonated with the eerie silence of the dead. Every corner, every turn, every alley was a stage where an ancient horror played out, a chilling ballet of revenge. The mummies moved relentlessly, their hollow eyes burning with an unquenchable thirst for justice. Their muted footsteps were the only sound in the otherwise deathly quiet streets. The living, once indifferent to the sanctity of the dead, were now trembling in the face of their spectral oppressors. Every breath of the living was laced with the icy chill of the dead. The once familiar streets were now a labyrinth of fear, with the echoes of the past bouncing off the walls. The living felt the cold breath of the dead on their necks, a reminder of their transgressions against the peace of the grave. The mummies, once the silent guardians of history, had become the harbingers of terror. Their mere presence was enough to freeze the blood in the veins of the living. The silent night was shattered by the screams of those who had disturbed the peace of the grave. The mummies advanced, their vengeance echoing through the ages. The horror unfolded in a grim spectacle. The mummies, with their centuries-old wrath, had turned the world of the living into a theater of the macabre. The living had forgotten the dead, but now they were forced to remember. In the midst of the chaos, the dead had found their justice, their revenge. The living, once oblivious to the sanctity of the grave, now understood the price of their disrespect. The mummies were no longer forgotten, their vengeance a stark reminder of the past that refused to be buried. In the end, they made sure that those who disturbed their rest would never forget them again.